Hello, hope you're having a fruitful weekend so far. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Choy. Let's start with President Park Geun-hye's visit to the United States. She has returned to Seoul after a 4-day trip, which wrapped up with her 4th summit with President Barack Obama. And our Hwang Sung-hee takes a closer look at the key outcomes from that meeting.
The presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae said Sunday South Korea and the U.S. reaffirmed their alliance during President Park's visit to Washington. For the first time, the two allies adopted a joint statement solely on North Korea, a sign of their strong commitment against Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program.
오늘 우리 두 정상은 한반도와 동북아의 평화 안보에 최대 위협이 되고 있는 북한의 도발 위협 및 핵능력 고도화와 관련해 많은 점에서 인식을 공유했습니다.
The joint statement details Seoul and Washington's action plan against Pyongyang, which includes strong counteraction against further provocations while remaining open to dialogue. The summit was also an opportunity to brush off any speculation that South Korea's recent cozy ties with China have fractured its alliance with the U.S.
We want South Korea to have a strong relationship with China, just as we want to have a strong relationship with China.
President Obama added that the U.S. expects South Korea to speak out if China fails to abide by international norms and rules. On the economic front, the presidential office said Seoul has secured Washington's consent for Korea's possible participation in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. With the negotiations for the 12-nation trade pact, which includes the U.S. and Japan, having wrapped up recently, some have voiced criticism about Korea's isolation in the new global economic order. President Park has another key diplomatic event ahead as Korea prepares to host its first trilateral summit with Japan and China in more than 3 years, slated for early November. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Sticking with the topic of the joint statement between South Korea and the U.S., despite concerns of a negative response from the North, the regime's foreign ministry did not even mention the high-level talks between Seoul and Washington in a statement released Saturday night. Instead, it demanded the U.S. make efforts to negotiate a peace treaty, adding only trust between the two countries can remove the roots of war and end the nuclear competition between them. The regime warned that the alternative to a peace treaty would be further nuclear development to counter threats from the U.S. This is the second time Pyongyang has suggested a peace treaty with Washington after its initial declaration made earlier this month. We are 2 days ahead of a much-anticipated round of reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The South Korean family members selected for reunions with their northern relatives are getting ready for the big, long-overdue event. Oh Si-young fills us in on how it will be carried out.
There are only 2 days left until families from the two Koreas separated by the 1950 to 1953 Korean War meet in a round of reunions. South Korea's Unification Ministry said Sunday that the people who will participate in the first round will gather in Sokcho on Monday, 1 day ahead of the reunion event. There they will be briefed on the itinerary and be given some precautionary instructions. The next morning on Tuesday, they will board a bus heading to Mount Kumgang on the northern side of the border, where they will meet long-lost loved ones for the first time in 60 years. The first round of meetings will reunite 394 people from South Korea and 96 from the north. Over the course of 3 days, the families will meet 6 times for 2 hours each at various events. A second round of meetings for 90 people from the south and 188 from the north will follow on Saturday and continue for 3 days. This will be the 20th round of reunions after those initiated in August of 2000. Roughly 650 families from North and South Korea chosen by lottery will participate in the reunions this year. Oh Si-young, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, a recent visit by 2 Japanese ministers to a controversial war shrine has cast a shadow over an upcoming trilateral summit with Korea and China, slated for early next month. Japan's Justice Minister Mitsuhide Iwaki and Internal Affairs and Communications Minister Sanae Takaichi visited the Yasukuni war shrine in Tokyo on Sunday, a day after Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent a symbolic offering to mark the country's annual autumn festival. South Korea's foreign ministry has condemned the actions, adding that the stable development of relations with Japan is only possible when Japan atones for its wartime atrocities based on a correct recognition of history. Both Korea and China view the shrine, which honors Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals, as an enduring symbol of Tokyo's militaristic past. The Korean currency has appreciated by the fourth biggest margin among the G20 currencies, with the Russian ruble leading that category. By the end of the day on Friday, the Korean won had risen 4.9% against the US dollar in a space of a month. The won was trading at 1,129 to the dollar, down 57 won from the month before. Some of the driving factors include downbeat economic data from the U.S., strong expectations that the U.S. will put off hiking interest rates this year, and a stronger demand for emerging currencies. But according to analysts, it's tough to say whether the won has reversed course and will start rising from current levels. That's a concern for local exporters, which are extremely sensitive to currency fluctuations. Reducing childcare expenses for families is not proving to be effective in helping to boost Korea's chronically low birth rates. So instead, policymakers shift their focus to creating a better environment for young married couples who are just getting started. Kim Min-ji takes a look at whether this move could help achieve the desired effect down the road.
Create a better environment for people to get married and have children. That's what the government plans to do as Korea continues to wrestle with the chronic problem of a low birth rate. Over the next 5 years, the government will take steps to help young people tie the knot, rather than postpone it indefinitely as many do now. The decision is based in part on data showing that the younger a person is when they get married, the more children they will have. In the year 2000, 26 was the average age at which Korean women first got married. But by 2013, it had risen to 30. The proportion of single people aged 25 to 39 has also risen, nearly doubling in 10 years. None of this is good news for Korea, as women who married before they were 25 had 2 children on average, while those who tied the knot after 35 had just 1.
We believe that reducing the burden when it comes to finding housing or getting a good education or a stable job will prevent young couples from postponing marriage.
To accomplish that, the government is hoping to increase the number of jobs for young people. By 2017, it plans to create 40,000 new positions in the public sector, while supporting job creation efforts initiated in the private sector. Housing is another problem for young married couples who are just getting started. To help them, the government will expand the housing loans for newly married couples, as well as ease of qualifications for housing support. In addition, any expenses related to pregnancy or childbirth will be included under the country's national medical insurance plan by 2017, and new childcare policies will be implemented to prevent working mothers from leaving the workforce. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's Black Friday event that ended last week was a boon for local retailers. During the first 2 weeks of October, the 22 participating retailers saw their sales jump more than $630 million, or over 20% from the same period last year. The Grand Sale was a government-led campaign aimed at boosting domestic consumption, which had slumped after the MERS scare over the summer. The number of foreign tourists also rose 8.5% during the cited period, marking the first rise since the outbreak began late in May. Korea's Black Friday is expected to lift fourth quarter consumption by 0.2 percentage points and its GDP by 0.1 percentage points from a year ago. Korea presented a wide range of cultural performances in Venezuela to mark 50 years of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Our Hwang Sung-hee gives us a taste of all that's going on in this report from Caracas.
Screaming and cheering fills the hall at a national theater in Venezuela. What's generating such fervent support? Korean artists who are here for a very special show.
We are very grateful to be able to perform here. We couldn't have done it without such a supportive audience.
The show is part of a two-day event hosted by Korea's Culture Ministry and the Korean Embassy in Venezuela, and organized by Arirang TV, celebrating the 50 years of relations between Korea and Venezuela.
I expect this kind of event to support the activities of Korean companies in Venezuela that are already actively operating here. 80% of Korea's construction contracts from South American countries come from Venezuela.
The over 2,000 seats were jam-packed with people who wanted to participate in this occasion.
We like the Korean culture, and this is the 50th Korean Peninsula anniversary, and we're happy.
Korean culture is it's expanding all over the world, and it's right now in here in Venezuela, it's very popular with Hallyu and Korean dramas and everything. It's very nice right now.
Some K-pop fans even staged their own performances.
I really love pop music, but in Korea it's really artistic because it's about dancing, about the way you look, about everything.
During the two-day event, Korea is also seeking to boost its image in Venezuela and further promote the cultural wave that has sprung up around K-pop. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Caracas.
Now for a quick look at the weather before we go. It's shaping up to be a bit of a dreary Monday with cloudy skies nationwide. The capital will see a morning low of 13 degrees Celsius with a spike of 24 in the afternoon. Expect similar readings in Gwangju, Daegu, and Jeonju. And now let's check out the weather conditions outside of Korea, around the world, and in your neck of the woods. That's it from us. Hope you have a great start to your new week.